welcome to this week's episode of Mad Science! We are super excited to be with you this week. This week we are going to really use our scientist brains. So we are going to do an experiment called Sink or Float. So you are going to need 10 items from your house. It can be whatever you want. We've got some toys, we've got a pumpkin, we've got a quarter, we've got a key, we've got some kid scissors and an eraser. Whatever you want, just get 10 items from your house. And you will need a bowl of water. So go collect your items and then meet us back here for Sink or Float. Welcome back. Let's get ready for Sink or Float. So this week in Seesaw, you will have an activity that has a picture of a chart like this. It says sink on one side and float on the other side. So what we're going to do is we're going to mark down what our items do. You don't have to draw a picture of them or anything like that. You're just going to make a mark if it sinks or if it floats. And then at the end, we'll count them up. So we're doing a little bit of science and a little bit of math. And there will also be a spot on your seesaw to write down your prediction or your hypothesis. Because as scientists, we want to make a guess about what we think will happen with our science experiment. So you can look at your items and think, I think 4 of these items are going to sink and 6 of them are going to float. So you'll write your hypothesis down, what your guess is about how many will sink and how many will float. And then you'll be able to see if you were right or not. So we have 10 items from our house. The first thing we're going to test is a My Little Pony doll. Isn't she lovely? She's a unicorn. We're going to see if she sinks or floats. Harley, do you think she'll sink or float?
I think she will float.
All right, let's find out. She floats. So when you get one that floats, go ahead and take her out. When you get one that floats, you'll go to your chart that says float, and you'll just make a line. Whoop. There's one that floats, or you can draw a circle, you can make a star, whatever shape you want to do. But we're going to write down the first one was a floater. All right. So let's see. Next, we are going to try our car. We have a toy car. Harley, do you think this toy car is going to sink or float? It's made out of plastic. Let's see what it does. She thinks it's going to sink. Oh, she was right. So we're going to put a line, or actually I'm going to draw a circle in our sink column. So now we have one that was a sinker and one that was a floater. We're tied. All right, next let's go with a pair of scissors. Do you think it's going to sink or float?
Sink.
Sink. Let's try it.
I'm right again.
She was right again, so we have another one. Sink. All right. Let's try the eraser. Think it's going to sink or float?
Sink.
Sink. Let's see. Woo! That one sunk right away, didn't it? There's another sinker. All right. Let's try an LOL doll. We have an LOL doll. Let's see. Do you think it's going to sink or float? Think it's going to float?
Float and sink.
Oh, very interesting. It kind of stands up, doesn't it?
This has air in the head and this doesn't.
Ah. I think Harley might have some experience with that too because she plays with these in the bathtub. So maybe she had an unfair advantage. She knew. So would you say I guess it's floating, right? It doesn't sink all the way because the head keeps it floating. So we'll say it's a float. All right. We're halfway through our items. Let's try a key. We have a key, just a metal key. Let's see. Do you think it's going to sink or float? It sunk. So mark one in the sink column.
Sunk right away, just like
it did sink right away. And how about a quarter? Do you think a quarter is going to sink or float?
I think it's going to sink.
Think it's going to sink? Let's see. It sunk. So very interestingly, both of the metal items were sinkers. Good to know. All right.
So sink
How
is
about a marble? We have a marble.
sink.
It's a glass marble.
Sink.
Harley thinks it's going to sink. It sure did. We have another one. Another sinker. All right. We've got 2 more items. Since it's fall, we thought we would do one of our tiny pumpkins. Do you think our tiny pumpkin is going to sink or float? What do you think?
Sink.
You think it's going to sink? Let's see. Oh, it actually floats.
I'm surprised.
It is surprising. Why is it surprising?
Because I thought it was going to sink.
Why did you think it was going to sink?
Because it's so heavy.
Because it's kind of heavy, right? So we're going to put that in the float column. So let's see here. Let's try our last item. I know some of our friends in our class know what these are. It's a transformer. Now, I don't really know how it transforms, but it is a transformer. So, do we think a transformer will sink or float?
The float.
Think it'll float? Let's see. Oh. No, it floats. It floats.
It kind of sinks
All
and
right.
floats. So a little bit is under
Yeah.
and a lot of
Kind
it
of like
is
the LOL
above.
doll. Okay, so our chart looks like this. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that were sinkers, and then we have 1, 2, 3, 4 that floated. So we know we had 10 items all together, so we can know that 6 and 4 equals 10. So that's how we can know we tested all of our items. So on your seesaw activity, you will mark down how many floated and how many sunk, and then you will write your equation for that. So 6 and 4 equals 10, and your adult helper can definitely help you. All right. So the whole point of the sink or float video is to talk about density. We've talked about density before, so we're just going to kind of go over it a little bit more. Remember, we were kind of surprised that the pumpkin floated on top of the water because it feels kind of heavy, right? And the key feels really light, so it seems like it would float and this would sink. But the difference is the key is more dense than the pumpkin. So that means the little bitty particles that make up the key are packed together really, really close, and so there's lots of them. So when we put the key in the water, it sinks because it is more dense than the water. But the particles that make up the pumpkin, they're not packed in so close together. They're kind of spread out. They're social distancing. So they make the pumpkin less dense than the water. So the water holds the pumpkin up. So that's how the pumpkin is able to float even though it feels heavier than the key, and the key sinks. Pretty cool. So the next thing we're going to do is also going to show us about density. So for the next thing, you will need a cup of water, and you'll want it to be kind of a taller cup. So you need a cup of water, an egg, just an egg from your refrigerator, a spoon, just to help you get the egg out and to do some mixing, and some salt. So gather up these materials and meet us back here, and we'll do the next thing. Welcome back. All right. So we talked about density and how the water was more dense than the things that floated, right? So now we're going to try with an egg. Do we think an egg will sink or float?
Sink.
Think it'll sink? All right, so I'm going to drop it in just to be really careful because it's an uncooked egg. It's a raw egg from the refrigerator. So we're going to drop it in and see what happens. It does sink. It sinks right to the bottom. So how could we make the water more dense than the egg? Well, we are going to add some salt. So let's get our egg out of here. All right, I'm trusting you with the egg. Hold it very carefully. It's a very important job. All right, so I'm gonna pour some salt into this water, and we're gonna give it a pretty good amount of salt. So we're making it like salty, salty ocean water, and we're gonna mix and mix and mix and mix and mix. We're gonna see if we can make this water more dense than the egg to see if we can make the egg float. You guys think we'll be able to do it? All right, let's give it a shot and see what happens. Ha ha ha! Very cool. I'm gonna move the camera up closer here so you guys can see that it's floating. Okay guys, so we took the egg back out of the water so you could see. All we added to the water was some salt. I'm gonna give it another stir just to make sure. It looks like it's all pretty well dissolved in there. And then Harley's gonna pop it in there and check it out. Move your hand. It floats right up to the top because now the water is more dense than the egg. And we saw it go to the bottom before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. So this is our lesson in density. And I'm so happy that you guys used your scientific brains with us today. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining us this week. We had so much fun doing our sink or float experiments. I can't wait to see you guys show us what you thought would sink or float in your house. So definitely take some pictures or even take a video of you doing it and show us what you did. We're so excited to see. And we'll see you guys next week on Math Science! Bye, guys.
Bye.